All right, happy Friday. It is April 5th, 2024, here at Precise Algorithm Trading. Let's get back up a little bit here. precisealgorithmtrading.com. And let's dive in here and take a look at the markets. The Dow futures, this is our automated trading system. It's just been in this sideways pattern here for a bit and more junk today. Looks like two trades, yeah, one up and one down for really not much there. Uh, the Russell here has been climbing out of a hole, and looks like we had one negative trade today. But the story of the day is that the Nasdaq, not saying this is over yet, that's been in a terrible decline here, and now we got this nice little bounce at the end of the day that helped actually make up for everything else today, and had a decent okay day today, which is good. We need to make up for a lot of this garbage that's been going on to the downside lately. So, and we'll make it up. It's just a matter of sticking to it. So that's the automated trading system. Our manual stuff we do over here in uh, Thinkorswim. You could do this in other platforms, but this is the one that uh, we're we're used to. So uh, we had the big down day yesterday. This is the S&P 500, and it's really obvious how big that down day was. And I can't remember what it was. Call it a percent or so. And then today we got the same thing coming back. So this is that major volatility in the markets, and we're back bullish, which is fine. It's all well and good. I also added these the Keltner stop back on here again, just because I think it's good to see from a this kind of, I don't want to say um, binds the price, because it doesn't, but it kind of gives you the parameters when you go from one side of the Keltner channels to the other. And these are two average true ranges apart from the midline, so it's two up and two down. And anyways, I think it just gives us an idea. Like, this is a actual sell signal. I don't think this is the end of this decline. I think we're going to get down to probably this uh, previous support line, channel line. But if not, that means this thing's a lot stronger than usual, and we'll climb right back out of it again, like it's been doing, which is possible because the bullish percent indexes are holding up. So, and that is a giant reversal after what was a really terrible day in the market, or big bearish day. Depends on where you're at with all this, whether it was terrible or not. But and this is going to show up in all these markets. We had a big down day in the Russell yesterday. That actually we were in a IWM position that stopped out. Just barely, but it stopped out. And this could end up being the kind of a market that gets away, because maybe it'll jump up, put in a new buy signal, which we kind of got one today, but we could get a follow through buy signal with the actual 30 period moving average, next week. And it could be the kind of trade that runs away like oil did when it stopped me out, and then it just ran. But I'm going to be aware of that. But at the same time, over here on the hourly chart, this looks like a pretty well defined head and shoulders pattern. And if that's the case, we look like we're coming all the way back down to this level here. I'm not saying it is, but it's very possible that could play out that direction. It actually wouldn't put this uptrend trend totally in jeopardy either. You could get a continuation pattern coming out of this. Because this is a major come up, back up off the bottom. That's a serious impulse wave, followed by some, pull back and chop. Basically, restore some energy, come back up, restore some more energy, and we come back up again as possible coming out of this. All right. The Dow today went up 307 points. We're at 38,904 on the actual Dow. 39,246 on the Dow futures. And again, this is one of those that makes you go, yeah, this thing is not over yet. So we've got this big sell-off, a pullback, which is totally normal. Come back up into a zone up into here and retrace back down again would be kind of normal. Notice that on a day like today, big rally like that, the stochastics is not even all the way buried yet to reverse. Now, I took off the RSI Laguerre that I had on here just because it wasn't really feeding me anything. But because I was really getting everything I need out of the stochastics anyway. I'm using the stochastics just so everybody's clear for really just overbought and oversold signals, and like for buying a new position, I relatively want it to be oversold. So like in this case, when the Dow came back up out off the bottom and started putting in buy signals, the stochastic followed right along with it, as well as these other two indicators up here that turn green. So that's really the whole reason I'm using it. Now, it also shouldn't be lost that this thing reversed right at the weekly dots here, which is really one weekly dot. It just shows up on um, every day that's in the week, which should make sense. But these parabolic SAR dots, they are useful. They're not perfect, like everything else isn't perfect. Like literally, when we just looked at the IWM, they didn't reverse, and I'm using them as a stop for if we're wrong, we're going to get out fast. And I'm using them. Yesterday's dot is our stop, and I'm making it a hard stop. Even though you could say, well, I don't need to make it a hard stop. You can just do it as a line in the sand and go manually trade. But I don't really want to play that way. I want out when I'm out, just because if this thing was going to completely reverse, then I just want out, and I want out with the fastest way, cleanest way possible, and I think that's it. So if we look at the Russell futures, they did get taken out. The dots did. So actually, that's more indicative of the more downtrend potential. So therefore, I really don't even want to be in IWM, because the futures I think are a cleaner product anyway. They trade, uh, more like 24 hours, not quite, and they're just more active. That's all. So, all right, that's those three. The Nasdaq went up quite a lot today, and it also showed a reversal in the last 2 days. So I don't think it's over either. And it did take out its weekly dots. Although that's interesting, they didn't reverse. What's it look like over here? Yeah, they didn't reverse because it's got a tail. But what that helps is when we have a bunch of positions that are bullish on it, even during bearish times, You get that kind of a snapback rally that gives you your positions a chance to heal after they basically take a pounding on the downside. Then they can come back, and then if we get some more upside volatility or even sideways, they can gain on a day like Monday or Tuesday next week before this thing rolls back over again, and they can continue to go higher in a market that's going lower. And for what it's worth, in case you follow along and look at any of these positions over here, they're not all bullish. Like I've got ARKK here as a bearish position just to show like the difference. This came up off of an impulse wave. It's pulled back and it's gone sideways, but it's also showing these parabolic SAR dots rolled over. We got a sell signal here. We actually got a pushback down into here, a pullback up into this zone, which is where I went short. I did it all off of the hourly chart when we reversed over the 30 period moving average, basically to catch that when it's coming back up again and rolling back over. And then I can still trail it with these pink dots instead of the yellow ones. And if these weekly red dots were closer down here, I might use them instead if they're close. And but basically the larger time frame, if you use a stop there, you're going to be less likely to get stopped out. So that's one. I also have another one that's AMD, which actually, I think it's AMD. Yeah, AMD, which sold off hard yesterday and actually with options gave me a 25% gain right out of the gate, but then pulled that back quite a bit for just today. It's up 2.77%. But, and I'm going to trail that again off of these pink dots. And I can just literally leave it on the daily chart that way. And if this thing rolls over, which I think it will, I could be wrong, but I think it will, then this thing could turn into one heck of a trade. All right, so that's some ideas of some bearish, how they work. So I guess my point is, don't just assume that these are all bullish. Most of them will be most of the time. But now you got kind of a flavor of how we look at bearish markets, especially when things are starting to unravel in the overall market. All right, the transports, they still look pretty all right. This is all big consolidation area. So if the overall markets start to really continue to pop based on the underlying conditions of being basically a lot of more bullishness than bearishness, this could pop right out of here, and this would be like basically the impulse wave up, even though it was a couple of waves, sideways move, and then we could blow out of that thing. And most people wouldn't expect that, which is why I think it's highly possible. And that's a 52-week high back here that it just seems like it's going to want to gravitate toward. So, oil. What did oil do today? Not very much. It went kind of sideways, 0.16% after this giant rally up to 52-week highs. Basically a sideways move. And the oil futures contract, same kind of thing. This is ripe for a pullback one of these days. I think a pullback, but then I do think we're probably going to come all the way back up here to these highs at some point. Let's look at this monthly. Weekly first. I know that looks like a lot of noise, but boy. Yep, that's pretty major. And then here's monthly. So monthly looks, if you're tied to the oil market and if oil prices go up, it makes you get creeped out. This is actually kind of rough place to be. I'm not going to say it's going to make it all the way back up to these highs, but it's poised to do that. If we look at it in a little bit of context, and open up this time frame. Yeah, if it gets up into this zone, I would expect it to get back up there too. That is a little bit creepy. So no guarantees, but that's what's shaping up right now. I'm still expecting in the shorter run a pullback at some point here. So, all right, gold GLD continues to run. BITO continues to consolidate sideways in a sort of pullback after it's had a nice big run. And what else? TLT bonds. Wherever it was there. There it is. Continues to go lower. I still think this is eventually going to pick back up again, but it could be wrong because the longer term trends just aren't there. Oh yeah, I wanted to look at natural gas, which has been on a giant sell-off lately and just continues to do that. All right, EEM. This is emerging markets. Yeah. Well, it's been on a tear as well. All right, that's the markets. Now the bullish percent indexes. And we'll wrap this thing up. The industrials rolled over, or yeah, put in another O today, and this is now well, it already was a point and figure sell signal up here, just extended beyond this support level. And the NYA down to 0.29%. Transports didn't change today. The NASDAQ down 1.53%. The NASDAQ 100, I'm out of order, down 2.17%. The S&P 500 down 1.47%, and the S&P 100 put in a new column of O's. So this, I think, actually supports the view that we have further downside, unwinding, chop around in this area and then go lower. And really we can watch these pink dots. If they decide to reverse, we can chop around and then this thing can go higher. So that's what we're going to be watching for, is the reversal of the parabolic SAR along with the other signals that we're used to watching. Alright, I forgot about this. Here's your VIX. It really went outside of the Bollinger Bands yesterday. And it's still outside of the Bollinger Bands. Didn't come back in, or else I'd have one of these arrows. So I think we can get some chop, maybe even a little bit higher number, and then come back in. And when it comes back in, that usually correlates with higher prices. So yeah, especially when it's like this back here. I have to zoom out to be able to see that, but there's where it was almost done with the rally, came back in, and then, or I shouldn't say the rally, the crash here with the actual S&P 500, a sell-off, not really a crash, and then it got a rally when this thing came back inside the Bollinger Bands and went so much lower. So that's what we were dealing with back here. And that's really what we're going to have to watch for again. Hopefully we don't get that kind of a sell-off. Multi-wave to the downside sell-off. I think this thing can stay intact generally inside this range, um, really without disrupting the world too much. All right, that's the end of the story for tonight. So everybody have a great weekend, and we will talk to you again next week.